Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Trial of the Valeyard, written by Alan Barnes and Mike Maddox. This is a bonus adventure and was part of the 2013's 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. This was also the first time that Michael Jason returned as the official Valeyard. He had returned before in, I believe it was 2003, for what they call an unbound Doctor Who story, which is Big Finish's alternative universe Doctor Who. However, I'll be talking about that particular story at one point, don't worry, because of headcanon and blah 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 blah. So this is a straight-on sequel to Trial of the Time Lord, which left many fans with a bunch of questions. And it got to a point where really any answer would be disappointing because so many people came up with their own fan theories and their ideas. But Big Finish decided that they are going to at least try to sum up the majority of Trial of the Time Lord. We also get the Inquisitor returning in with Linda Bellingham, her name's on the actual cover this time. Linda Bellingham returning. Sadly, however, this would be her final role before she sadly passed away of cancer, I believe. So yeah, and this is the official Big Finish CD cover, which is really cool over there. And like with most of these covers, I designed my own Big Finish DVD cover. So that's the front. I put this one together myself. I couldn't find a very good image apart from the one that's on the cover, so I had to improvise a bit by putting this triangle to give it a bit more dynamic and putting a Sixth Doctor with a different image there, just to try and give it a little bit more dynamic. Here is the spine. As you can see, kind of the logo, the Doctor Who logo is leaking on the side of there. I tried to get rid of it, but didn't little prevail. And here's a spine, to which I used a promotional photo of Trial of the Time Lord there. So there you go. And this story, in my opinion, is very interesting listening to this retroactively. A lot of elements of this story seem to connect with other really big and very modern Doctor Who stories like The Timeless Child and The Time Lord Victorious. Though this is purely coincidence. I highly doubt that James Gross and Chris Chibnall had listened to this story and taken some influence of it. But looking back, it is kind of interesting to note that the Valeyard's what the Valeyard says does connect to future stories, both in real life and to the Sixth Doctor's point of view. So that's really interesting. So anyway, the story at hand. The Sixth Doctor gets taken back to the Gallifreyan space station, which he was held on trial in Trial of the Time Lord. However, and he meets the Inquisitor. I don't think she's named in this. We learned in Gallifrey her name is Darkle, but she's not named again in this story. So from the Sixth Doctor's point of view, he doesn't know her name. Interesting note to thing. And the story starts off really fun as the Doctor is literally not playing ball. First of all, he refuses to get out of his TARDIS, and the Time Lords ignored him. So it's like, right, that's it. And he comes out through the door of the court and is like, whatever you're playing at, I am not playing at the court. In fact, I'll make it easier for you. Yes, I am guilty. I am guilty, guilty, guilty. So now let's just move on with our lives. Before the Inquisitor is like, Doctor, shut up. You are not the person who is on trial. You are actually the defendant. And the person on trial is the Valeyard, to which they found him on a mud slab planet, and they've captured him and they're basically putting him on trial for reasons which they cannot classify. The Doctor originally is hesitant on taking up the role. In fact, he wants the Time Lords to discover that he's guilty and put them into imprisonment. However, the Doctor slowly reveals that there's a lot of conspiracies going along. For example, he's still not allowed to mention Ravolox. Comes into a really funny scene in which the Doctor keeps mentioning Ravolox, and the Inquisitor tells the transcript to delete that last bit. And the Doctor's like, what am I not allowed to mention? Oh, you mean Ravolox? Delete that last bit. Please stop referring to that event. What event? Oh, you mean the events of Ravolox? Delete that. We get like a really funny, humorous moment. However, the Doctor starts feeling that this is a trial which is unfair, as the court is not even allowed to know what the Valeyard is charged for, and some of the origins of the Valeyard isn't actually allowed to be classified due to the highest of the High Council deeming it unwise. Now, thinking back to the Timeless Child storyline for a sec, I know a lot of people might be a bit hesitant on the Timeless Trial element, but hear me out. We are not allowed to know the Valeyard's origins and what he is known from the very beginning of his timeline. And we know that the Valeyard is, at least in some way, a future incarnation of the Doctor at this point in the story. What if the reason why the greatest, highest Time Lords aren't allowed to reveal the Valeyard's identity is because his identity would be that he's the Timeless Child? Who knows? Obviously it's a big coincidence, but that's a really interesting note, and the resemblance of this theory I have will play on more and more throughout the story. And so the Doctor is basically shocked at this injustice of the court, and so reluctantly he does take on the mantle of defendant, helping the Valeyard. Now what this story nails to what all of the Trial of the Time Lord storyline fails is that with this story, the trial is the main segment. There's no other story. The entire story takes place in the trial, or at least the first two halves. And we hear things from characters' point of view, leaving the audience to wonder whether it's real or not. And because we don't get distracted, and this is a very interesting courtroom drama of the Valeyard being put on trial, but he's an evil future incarnation of the Doctor. But however, his crimes aren't even allowed to be mentioned, which is just unfair. The Valeyard's not even allowed to defend himself, to show that what he was doing was justified. And so the Doctor, who is originally his arch enemy, now takes up the mantle of defending him. And so it's just, there's a lot of intrigue going into the story. And yes, most of it is the Doctor and the Valeyard trying to basically snuff out information, which plays into a few scenes in which characters just deny any information and just glorying at the same subjects. But in this case, it's done in a very fun point of view, with the Doctor really not taking this seriously at the start. In fact, when the Doctor sees that he is a defendant, and the Inquisitor asks the Doctor, does he need anything before trial can begin? The Doctor goes, yes, I would like some opera glasses and some popcorn. This is going to be some really fun drama. So you've got a lot of great banter, and Colin Baker, Michael Jason, and Leela Bellingham do a fantastic working off each other and bouncing off each other. Here the Inquisitor actually has a very vocal part to play in the story, as she's basically the judge, jury, and executioner in this sense. But information is being kept away from her. And when the Doctor basically learns that this trial will not lead in the Valeyard's imprisonment, but actually his death, does the Doctor really start to take this seriously, because it's a sickening of justice. And Valeyard brings up a very interesting part of the court. He asks them to examine when this particular law that trials can now lead up to execution for what the Valeyard has done. And everybody's like, what are you on about? It happened only a few days ago. It only happened recently. But the Valeyard insists, find out when this law came into effect. And when the Inquisitor looks, she finds that this law was actually amended during a time of a particular house of Gallifrey ruled as presidency. However, as everybody knows in Time Lord society, in terms of the Time Lords themselves, they haven't had this particular house rule for almost millennia, meaning that this law is incredibly old. And the Doctor and the Inquisitor are shocked by this. And the Doctor suspects that the Time Lords have actually gone back into their own personal history to rewrite the law to fit the case at the moment. And so we get to probably the meat of this story, as the Doctor, to try and give the Valeyard a fair trial, asks the Valeyard, what is he? How did he come to being? Who is the Valeyard? And we get a little story told by the Valeyard. As a young boy, he was found on this mud planet that the space station is now hovering over. And Time Lords found this small boy and read his DNA and found it an exact match of the Time Lord known only as the Doctor. It is also here that the Time Lords decided to put him into a Gallifreyan house, the House of Shadows, a abomination house given by Rassilon, and he basically put all his regenerated rejects into the House of Shadows. Time Lords who regenerated inside out, who've regenerated but their minds haven't. Time Lords who only half regenerated. Time Lords who've regenerated into beasts and monsters and stuff of pure evil. And the Time Lord known only as the Valeyard explains that he befriended a young boy in this academy, a Time Lord who is stuck in a paradox where his future incarnation prevented his past incarnation from even existing, resulting in a Time Lord stuck between two regenerations. And according to the Valeyard, this creature, this being, this person, his friend, was someone who was very difficult to look at. It was a creature whose very appearance breaks the speed of light into the people's retina, and he was constantly flickering between two different incarnations of himself. This creature told the Valeyard about the hidden secrets of Time Lord regeneration. He proclaims that Rassilon put down the 12 regeneration cycle, which is public knowledge to the Time Lords, allowing for 13 incarnations of a particular Time Lord. However, the Valeyard explains, have you ever wondered why a Time Lord isn't allowed to go 14th? Why Rassilon put the limit on there in the first place? To which the Time Lords believed it was because it was the maximum limit before the cells, the regeneration process can break down, leading into abominations or madness. However, the Valeyard, according to this young boy that he's spoken to, discovered that that was a lie. The Doctor's future self discovered that that was a lie. The Valeyard, who at this point I believe didn't have any memory of being the Doctor, discovered that was a lie. There was no reason why a Time Lord could not just regenerate forever, even outliving Time Lord society. However, Rassilon feared for being as mighty as he, and so he put this Time Lord regeneration limit and put this idea that if any Time Lord was to go further, then they would, in fact, go mad. Now, going back to the timeless child theory, connecting this story to that, we know that this is true. We know now that this is a thing, that the Time Lord, that Rassilon only put 13 regenerations as a sort of limit, and really we don't need the limit. Time Lords could have regenerated forever if Rassilon wasn't fury that something mightier than him. And so the Valeyard proclaims that he will know someone who would learn this and dedicate his very last regeneration, the one that will go mad, into trying to discover the secrets of Rassilon's limitations, to try and break it, so that Time Lords can regenerate forever without any issues. And the Valeyard proclaims this person he will know will break the limit, the one whose very experiments created the Valeyard to allow a Time Lord to regenerate forever, is the 13th incarnation of the Doctor. That's a really great backstory. I really love the mythology of this story and the way the Valeyard tells it, and the fact it is the Valeyard telling it. And what we learned later at the end, I really like the way it's told, in that it's like the Valeyard doesn't really give a hint that it's like a fairy tale or lie. From his conviction, he is telling the truth. And like I said, retroactively listening to this story, knowing about future stories about the Timeless Child and Time Lord Victorious, because that will play in a part in a bit. I'll get onto that. It makes this story feel almost like it had to happen, because some of the stuff that the Valeyard mentions might not be 100% connected to the Timeless Child, but the idea that experimentation on a child, or at least experimentation leading a Doctor with no memory and reverting back into a child, does that not sound familiar? Yeah, it's basically the Timeless Child. So that's a really cool, strange... I mean, it's definitely a coincidence. I highly doubt Chris Chibnall listened to this story and took influence from it. I think at best it's just pure coincidence. But a fan can dream. And the Doctor doesn't take this one bit and asks for evidence to the Valeyard to proclaim that there is evidence on the mud planet. There's a little hut which has some of the Doctor's belongings to prove that it is the Doctor's belongings. He proclaims that there's a painting of Stockbridge, a place which the Doctor has returned to multiple occasions in the Doctor Who comic books, especially the Doctor Who magazine comic books, the Doctor Who Weekly. And so the Doctor and the Valeyard proclaim, let's go down there and discover the Valeyard secrets. And first of all as well, the Doctor doesn't really believe the Valeyard. But the Valeyard proclaims the evidence he needs is that in this hut, on this mud planet where the Valeyard is from, there are black scrolls of the Doctor. Black scrolls, I would like to mention, according to the Valeyard, he stole from the Dark Times. That's a really interesting observation. For those who don't know, the Time Lord Victorious storyline is a storyline that happens between the years 2020 and 2021. And it sees the 8th, 9th and 10th Doctor travelling back to the Dark Times. It's also in this story where the 10th Doctor basically goes mad trying to prevent death itself and proclaims he is Time Lord Victorious, even wearing the Time Lord robes. And so the Valeyard to mention that the Doctor's not only been to the Dark Times and that there are scrolls there from the Dark Times which will try and help the Doctor into finding immortality, and not just any immortality, a perfectly reasonable immortality in which it's not like a curse and agony. It is something which someone can live forever without any hindrances. Doesn't that sound like they should be at least connected in some way? Again, I think it's obviously a massive coincidence. I highly doubt James Gross listened to this and went, "Oh, that would make a great idea for Time Lord Victorious." But the idea that the Valeyard knows that in the Doctor's personal future, he will go back into the Dark Times and trying to prevent death itself. And now that Valeyard's mentioned, it's just a nice coincidence, which a lot of fan theories, I think, can come from that. I like to believe that these black scrolls were actually taken by the 10th Doctor. I mean, we do later learn that the Doctor but basically gets an extra cycle of regeneration thanks to the Time Lords to try and let them save Gallifrey. So this is really fun, interesting to note. However, the Inquisitor won't allow them to go onto the mud planet, and because there was no evidence for this during the court, they sentence the Valeyard to death. As just before he dies, he proclaims that the Doctor has seen this curse, this abomination of justice, and that this madness, the fact that the Doctor's now learned this from the Valeyard, that somebody can break the regeneration cycle and live forever. The Valeyard basically planted it in the 6th Doctor's mind to go searching for this, and that basically the Valeyard put the idea in the Doctor to do this, which will lead into experimentations, creating the Valeyard, basically completing the circle. And so, 2/3 into the episode, the trial ends with the Doctor witnessing a horrifying event, seeing the Valeyard being executed. And a great moment as well is when the Inquisitor tells the Doctor, "Thank you for your cooperation." And the 6th Doctor's like I have said all the time, all you Time Lords can go hang! And he gets into his TARDIS and flies off. So, yeah, the trial segments are really fun and really intriguing. And it's one of those fan-pleasing storylines. I don't know if the story works for somebody who's not a fan of Doctor Who. But if you are a fan, you are constantly intrigued, learning about this information. But it's told in a way where it leads you in. It lets you be more interested in the plot. It makes you want to figure out what's going on. Will the Doctor become the Valeyard? And so the Doctor, to try and see if this was correct, goes to the Mud Planet and discovers a hermit. A crazy old man who rants around about junkyards, Totter's Lane, Polly, fish people. And the Doctor clips. This is the 13th Doctor, the final incarnation. Okay, they didn't proclaim that the 13th Doctor was a blonde female quirky young lady, but we'll learn later on that about this character. And so the Doctor goes into his hut, where the 13th Doctor, the hermit, we just call him, tries to make tea, but he's clearly mad. He's making no lick of sense. He constantly references how he basically keeps losing focus as he's like, he looks at the 6th Doctor, he's like, I remember you, will remember you, I will know you, I have known you, I like your coat, I used to have a coat like that, colourful coats, Josephine's coat of many colours, stuff like that. And the Doctor tries to sit down and tries to talk to him to try and work out what's going on, and believes that this 13th Doctor shouldn't exist. This is an incarnation who shouldn't really be provided into the timeline. However, the Doctor hears TARDISes, battle TARDISes, as the Inquisitor, along with some guards, come marching into the hut, and the Doctor and the Hermit go for a run for it, as the Hermit gets stuck in a swamp and sinks in, basically dying in the Mud Planet. And the Doctor, basically witnessing his own death, is completely shocked by this. But the Inquisitor won't let our Doctor die, as they find this black scroll, the cabinet which keeps the Doctor's black scrolls. And the Inquisitor basically explains that this is where they found the Valeyard. He was holding this, keeping this secret. But the only issue is that this cabinet would only open for one Time Lord, and that it would be the Doctor. And so she gives the thing to the Doctor to try and open it. And the Doctor's contemplating. He's like, if I open this and look into this, this might be the trigger that starts the Valeyard, the creation of the Valeyard, to make me the Valeyard. And he contemplates this until he realizes, hold on, you found the Valeyard with this. He could have opened it any time, but no, he didn't. He waited for the Inquisitor and the Doctor to find it still and wait for them to open it. And then something in the Doctor clicks as he throws it in the mud bath and proclaims that you have not won, to which the Inquisitor is furious. It's like, we needed those informations, those secrets, so that Time Lords can live forever. However, the Doctor works it out, as from the mud pile, the Hermit incarnation of the Doctor comes back out from the mud and reveals that behind his face, a mask. It was the Valeyard. This entire plot was a trail to lead the Doctor and the Inquisitor onto this planet so they could activate a bomb which would have assassinated them and killed high-ranking Time Lord officers in an act of revenge. And so the story ends with the Valeyard basically escaping, and the Doctor basically exclaiming there was no Black Scrolls, this was just a ploy to assassinate us. And the Inquisitor proclaims that, wait, was all of the Valeyard's story, was that all a lie? And the Sixth Doctor just doesn't know. He says that there can't be no smoke without fire. But basically, the Sixth Doctor thinks that in the Valeyard he lied, but there was a lot of truth that he digged in there. That what he's saying wasn't true. However, a lot of it is, and he hid his plan, his foil, hindering on that lie, on the blend between a lie and a truth. Basically what I'm saying is that this story still really works in terms of continuity. We can keep this idea and basically alter it, saying that some bits were false so that we can focus on the more bits that we know are true. The Valeyard losing his memories, being reverted back to a child, reliving his life as the Doctor, basically the Doctor becoming some sort of immortal creature. Timeless child. The Doctor going to the dark times to get the secrets of immortality. Time Lord victorious. This is one story, I think, for fans. It might have been a really great, enjoyable story when it was released. But now looking at it retroactively, it is actually improved. It is actually something which really sums up not just this story, but future stories, and allows it to connect with past stories like the Time Lord, Trial of the Time Lord. And it's just, I can't stress enough that the story is mainly just continuity heavy. It's more about connecting all the dots and stuff, or disconnecting dots. But it surprisingly still works, which I find really fun. And that's Trial of the Valeyard. Overall, it is a very good story. It's engaging. You actually do, you are very intrigued in this trial. As if the Valeyard gets executed, the Valeyard will be executed, but will it be justified or an act of injustice? And the Doctor wants it to be, and everybody wants to see this character dead, but for different reasons, and everybody has an alternative motive, and that it basically sums up as what Trial of the Time Lords really should be. The Valeyard is a great villain. The missed opportunity that the Valeyard is a future evil incarnation of the Doctor is summed up in this story and is played to its advantages, making the Valeyard retroactively, and still is, one of the Sixth Doctor's greatest antagonists. And luckily, thanks to the Last Adventure box set, this will not be the last time we will be tackling the Valeyard. So there you go, that's Trial of the Time Lord. So join me next time where the Doctor will be travelling with a strange companion and will go onto a planet of anthropomorphic animals. So join me next time for the Maltese penguin. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!